Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchtime series with me, Kim Britz, proudly powered by leadershipbydesign.co, where we aim to add value to people's lives. You can catch us live every Wednesday and Thursday at lunchtime on ebizradio.com. We're on all your major podcast channels today. So if you are seeing this or listening to this, I want to challenge you today to add value to someone's lives today. We certainly need more people in the world to add value to others and to be kinder to one another. And with that in mind, we have a wonderful guest all the way from New York joining us. She's a career strategist and executive coach. And she's going to be chatting to us about how to be a little bit more successful. But I'll ask her to extrapolate more on that. Please welcome to the Lunchtime series, Mayda Poc. Mayda, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for the awesome introduction. And I love as well this prompt of how can I add more value to my life and to somebody else's. And I think this is the whole part of probably of our conversation, is how to feel successful while you are contributing to somebody else's success. So thank you. All of that to say, thank you for inviting me.
And thank you for being here. I think, like the very first time we chatted, we had a really great chat about, leadership and the importance of what leadership is. But I mean, today we are going to be unpacking a little bit of, one of the conversations we want to touch on and share is, what does the future leader look like? And I think as times are evolving and we look at the world and we see that, the world definitely needs better leadership. Part of that conversation is, why do you think it's important today to define new ways of leadership? I mean, before we go to that, I'm just totally interjecting here. Don't you want to give us a bit of background about you and first unpack that for us, and then we'll go straight in the questions?
Absolutely. So my name is Mayda Poc. I used to be an investment banker, and I did all sorts of roles in investment banking for 16 years. I worked in Paris, then I worked in London, then I worked in New York. And after that, I had one of those life happens type of events. I still stayed at the job, and came a time where it was about time for me to redefine my identity and my definition of success. And this is where things started unfolding for me, and I became a career coach, a career strategist. I work with men and women who are mostly in banking and retail and marketing. I also work with a lot of coders and engineers as well. And the idea behind my mission is to help them find that inner place where the job is part of their life purpose. It's not all their life purpose, but it's part of their life purpose, where they are proud of their achievements, where they feel that they are aligned with their values, with what they long for. And at the same time, not to be, how can I say that? Not to feel like you don't have any choice, to find that place of sovereignty and agency inside of them. So this is what has been my mission over the last now 6 years.
I'm just, the word you just used was finding the sovereignty and agency within them. I've been doing this for a very long time already. And I've never, in the last 12 years of me knowing, doing what I do, I've never heard anyone refer to leadership as sovereignty and agency. But I mean, and I think that really is the foundation of our conversation today, right? Because part of this is why do we need to redefine what new leadership looks like? And why is it important today to define a new way of leadership? Because I think, the concept, the idea, the story that we have about leadership as a theme or as a conversation, if we look at the history books, they don't define them really well, what some leaders used to be like, and I think when you say sovereignty and agency, when you come from that positioning, you really step it up in what leadership really how to define leadership in a new way. Please tell us why this is important.
It's important because I feel that today we are in a unique point in our civilization where it's about time to choose a side. And the side that you are choosing is, am I working for the highest good, including mine, including other people, or am I working out of fear, out of lack, out of something that I am afraid of, or any kind of fear? So the camp we are choosing today is, how can I be impactful? How can I be someone, as you said at the beginning, who can make a difference in other people's lives? It's not new, but today this is something that is at the forefront of job offerings, of companies' mission statements, and all that kind of things. The new leadership is not only about becoming the CEO of Apple or whatever. And the new leadership is also a way of almost having a personal code of integrity where they're going, when you're a leader, you will have tough decisions to make, but you are making them, again, from that place where you're making this decision because it is not a perfect decision, not the optimal decision, but it is the right decision to make at that moment. And so we talked earlier about biases, we talked earlier about scarcity, about operating from a constant place of fear. Fear has its place, but it's not where we should be. The new leadership should be, and I use the word should because that's an ideal for me, it should come from a place of vision and from a sense of mission. And these two should be backed by values. So if you go into, especially here in the US, if you go onto companies' websites, they all have a mission statement of inclusivity and helping others and what have you. And for some of them, it's a lot of lip service. It's very nice. It's, a lot of makeup. And then when you take that makeup, there's a lot of not very nice things that are happening. So the new leadership is that bridge between what your ideals are as a person and how they align or how they integrate and how they are congruent with what you do in the world. So in a way, it's a marriage. It's not like before where you would go to the mine because you needed the money, and we all need money. But today would be you go to the mine maybe because you need the money, but also it's not maybe the right example, but you're going to the job because there is an impact you're having on other people and on yourself and in your family as well. So it's getting into that sense where it's not only about the job, it's not only about the title, it's not only about an identity or anything that is on the outside, but it's something that is profoundly congruent with what you want for yourself on the inside.
The statement that you just made about it's time that you choose a side, and I think that statement is I'm gonna, once we're done here, I'm gonna share this video with as many people as possible. And I'm one. I mean, I've never articulated that way, but I'm 100% support that viewpoint. That it's time that you pick a side. That you are either in this to make a difference to your life and everybody that's in your life's, in your life's path, or you're against that, and you need to decide what side you want to be on this side of that narrative. Because at the end of the day, we look at climate change. We were having a conversation with climate almost activists, really. It's a company called Clean Creatives in South Africa, and I think they have one in the US, where they're really encouraging creatives to sign up on the pledge of being on the right side of what creative agencies are doing for climate change and how they are, who are they working for, and what does that do? Those companies support, climate change, or do they not support climate change? And on what side of the scale are you? And it's time that you actually chose. You need to decide, make a decision. Are you either working with us for the greater good of what we're trying to achieve for our children's children, or are you doing something else? And I think that speaks to the sovereignty and the agency that you mentioned. Essentially, on that side of that decision, you have to step back and kind of go, well, how do I want to leave this world?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the importance of why we do need new leadership and why we need to define what new leadership looks like, because the way it's been done, from 2023 before, it simply isn't working effectively anymore. It's not working, and we need some really special, impactful humans to make better decisions and choose which side of that scale they're actually falling on. And I mean, one of the questions you ask is, or that whether we ask here is, what is the consequences of continuing with this heavy pushing, grabbing the bull by the horns kind of type of mentality? Like, what are those consequences? Because that's usually the easy way, right? It's, I'll force my way through it.
It's easy because you're a guy and you have this energy. and it's great. It's a great energy as well. It's a warrior. It's very masculine, and we need that as well. We need
but it
people
may
with
not
this.
be an effective strategy, right?
No, it's not. It's needed. It's a tactic. It could be a tactic like anger and other emotions, but it's not effective because it's very depleting. Number one, it's very depleting. Number two, you need to ask yourself as a leader, do you really want to be on top on your own? This concept of it's very lonely at the top. Is that really who you want to be? Do you want to be an autocrat? Do you want to be just governing other people to do whatever you want and then realize, well, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I cannot get that buy-in? Or do you want to be someone who is into more collaboration and a form of consensus? At the end of the day, as a leader, you will make that decision. It's your job. That's why you are the leader. But you have enough of this openness, of this curiosity, to understand, number one, that we don't make our decisions in a vacuum. Most of the times we make our decisions from a place of fear or motivation, and motivation sometimes is not the right motivation, because sometimes it looks like a motivation, but it's a fear. Example, greed. So that's number one. Number two, I think also that we have access to enough information these days that it would be almost like a shame not to take advantage of it and not to understand that other people have other pieces of the information. So this pulling and pushing, it can work, and sometimes you have to say enough. But at the end of the day, it doesn't work with your body. It doesn't work with your mental health. You're going to feel very lonely and misunderstood, and guess what? Bitter and resentful. Whereas going into a place where you find like-minded people, you work with like-minded people, this is where this new leadership is collaborative. It's not like we spend 20 hours around the table and no decision is made. It's not the case, but it's about the inclusivity part of it, is understanding the different perspective and then deciding, because you're a leader, because you have sovereignty, is what is the best course to take in that case. And that can translate not only in the corporate world, but also in all the micro decisions you make every day. And we talked about climate change. We can talk about a lot of different things, but do I want to leave the world a better place than what I got? I don't know anyone because maybe I don't want to know these people who would say, no, I want to take up all the resources, and after me, I don't care. I think we all inside of us, we want to leave the workplace, we want to leave the people we meet in a better place than when we met them in the first hand. And I think this is a good, it's almost like a good philosophy in life. It's not perfect. We're going to fall and learn and fall again. But at the end of the day, when we come from that place of how does it feel inside of me when I operate from a place of integrity? What does it look like? Am I really making, sometimes you have to make very difficult decisions and not everybody will be happy, and maybe you will end up harming people, not necessarily because you want to harm them, but because that is the only decision that is acceptable at that time. And these are the things as well, I think, where this idea of sovereignty comes up with, is a place of accountability, a place of responsibility, but also a place of knowing that whatever you're doing it, you haven't been forced to do it, you're doing this knowingly. And you are okay, and you can stand behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also part of the conversation when we first chatted was, what does the future of leadership really look like? And one of the questions here is, how do you define inner leadership? And for me, I think that's a foundation. It is the foundation of where leadership in any capacity starts. And it starts with me. It starts with me being the one who's willing to stand up and put my hand up and say, I will do it. It's me that's taking the step and making that decision and saying, I choose to do better for me, but for, the greater good of the people whoever I come into contact with. The reason why I do the Lunchtime series is, adding value to people's lives. It's how do I show up today in the smallest way that I could possibly impact someone so that, their lives could be even just 1% better than it was yesterday, if that's the case. So, I mean, how do you define inner leadership, and where should we look?
I was going to steal everything that you said and make it mine, because it's really no, it's perfect. It was perfectly put. I would go back to integrity, and I would go back into, what do I really want? How do I want to be known for? And not in a self-centered way, but more into what is it, that tender, loving, sovereign part of me? What does it dictate? What is it asking me to be or to do today? And then see, again, let's be aware of our biases, of our fears, of the choices we are making, and from what place. And this is the part of the inner leadership, is it starts by myself. If I feel at peace with myself, and again, it's going to take time, and it's touch and go, but if I feel at peace, if I feel that I did my best, then I am in my inner leadership, because I'm not trying to please. I'm not, of course we are, but we're not overly trying to please at the expenses of my own integrity. I'm not trying to conform or to comply because I want to please. We talked about that earlier, a tribe or a way of thinking. I am my own independent thinker, and I know inside of me what is good and what is bad, your way, and I will do what is best in this moment, because I think it's the right thing to do. So it's a bit of a long definition. Yours was much more succinct and better than mine, but it's about
what I love about that, what you're saying is, being authentic and independent thinking. And I think I need to go and check this information, but I saw recently on some social media where they did a study on frequencies, and what is the frequency of love and what's the frequency of anger, and all these frequencies, and they did it with a measurement of a couple of thousand people. And the highest frequency that we naturally would assume would be love or empathy or joy. But what this study shows is that the highest frequency that they could measure was authenticity. Right. And if you look at what you just saying now, speaking about sovereignty and an agency and even the philosophy of leadership that you have for yourself, I think that in itself speaks quite specifically of the authentic leader. And what does an authentic leader do? An authentic leader is not in competition with anyone else, other than being better than he was yesterday or she was yesterday. An authentic leader shows up and challenges themselves in a way that they know, these are some of the struggles I have, and these are the things I need to work at. And constantly having this evolution of, and again, I'm just adding to what you're saying, is having that inner dialogue with yourself and self-awareness around, how do I show up, and am I doing better than I did yesterday? Can I be accountable to how I'm responsible? And just to add, something I also saw on social media was someone having blame, sharing blame about something, and the person got really angry. She's like, "Why am I responsible to?" And the response to that was, "Well, I didn't say you're responsible. I said." He said, "But do you have the ability to respond to it?"
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly just the framing of that, you kind of go, immediately you're back at like, can you lead self? And how does that show up for your life and for your people and for your relationships and for your business and for the decisions we're making about whether we should have wars in the world and not have wars in the world, But I mean, just to bring it back to like a practical way, what does it look like when we are doing this practically? And like, what are the practical ways that we can go about redefining this inner leadership?
Absolutely. So the first, and it came from what you were saying, made me think, is that we also are making the choice. Do I want to be the driver of my life, or do I want life to drive me? But then if you decide that you want life to drive you, you can't complain that you don't have a choice, right? So practical way is understanding where you are in that not a driver's seat. And sometimes we have to be, right? So we don't necessarily always are in that position of the driver, but find this way where we have an idea where we want to go. We have an idea of how do I want to show up in my life every day, and go into self-awareness. So it might not be a step-by-step plan, because again, it's a dance with life, it's a dance with your reactions, it's a dance with your fears and your motivations. But it starts by self-awareness. It starts by, where am I playing small? And why am I playing small? And as you start peeling these layers of onions, because we have a lot of onions going on, then will come a point where you are, I'm going to use that word vulnerable. I'm not sure I'm not finding the exact word, but you are authentic. You are in that place of more authenticity, where you know very quickly, immediately inside of you, whether you are in that zone of excellence, zone of mastery, zone of integrity, and when you are not. You will know it immediately. You will feel some sort. I feel like a knot in my stomach when I'm not doing what I should be doing, or I'm lying, or to myself or to others. And then you have this opportunity to correct immediately. Yeah. And you will see it's like a muscle. With time, you realize very quickly that it's not about making other people feel good, and it's not about making yourself feel good, but it's about the right thing to do. And the right thing to do could be, sometimes, again, I go back to that because it's easy to do the right thing when everything is fine. But it's much more difficult, and this is the testing, and this is, the bottom of that hero's journey when we arrive in that cave, and, the dark night of the soul is when you get to that space when you feel lonely, when you feel that there is nobody else, and what do I do? This is where leadership is really made, is during these times where you have, again, to make that choice. Am I choosing something out of fear? And sometimes we have to, but maybe that fear, if that fear doesn't exist, or it's only mental fear, or it's only projected fear, how can I make a choice where I leave things better? Or where I feel I am better, where I feel I'm growing, where I feel I'm not bound by a comfort zone that doesn't work for me anymore. It's very comfortable, but it doesn't work for me anymore. And these are the ways. So concretely, you start by self-awareness. You also have a plan of action in terms of self-awareness. It's not only, I messed up. Okay, bye. It's, okay, how can I do it better next time? And sometimes one of the things that I like is not to spend too much time on that either, is to replay this in my head. It's like, okay, I did this and this. How could I do it better next time? And guess what? It will happen. The next time will happen, and you will have another opportunity. And as you continue building that muscle of trust in yourself, that you can make decisions, and some of them will be successful, some of them might not, but you can learn from them, and that give you new information to make new decisions, the more you build that, and the more you will start discovering that inner part of yourself that will respond immediately to whatever is going in terms of your mental or your psychological makeup or state, or physically as well.
I love that. So, I mean, to end of today's conversation, and it's been such a fantastic one already, Mayda, I'm going to have to ask you, we're going to have to come get you, we're going to have to get you back, and we're going to have more conversations about more, because I know there's so much information you could share. But I mean, how can we be different but yet succeed in the workplace? And it's a great question, because very often, I work with a lot of teams, and you find that, they're all managers, or they're all senior managers, or they're all HODs, and you kind of realize that, they're already at top level kind of positioning, but they want to succeed more. They want to still do more, and yet, but they still want to be different. Right. So it becomes this push and pull, and you kind of go, well, how different can you really be if you're in that one position? What is it? What do people do? Like, what is the answer to that?
It's very individual, because the difference, how different you want to be, start by what is being different for you, and then see if this is compatible with where you are. Because, if you're a climate activist and you work in, let's say, an oil company, my first question is, maybe that could be the occasion for you to make that change within that oil company. So though you are different, you are aligned with your values. But if you want to continue there and still be the client activist and push against everything that the company is doing, you might not last for a long time. So I would like for people to define what is different to them, and how this is congruent between their values and the company's values and mission as well. So it starts there, because if you're not aligned with what the company wants, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel like a fraud, or like you're not authentic or truthful to yourself. So we'll start by that. The second part is, I think when you come from a place of authenticity, there are a lot of room for you to be different. You can have a different way of communicating with teams, but you can also adapt that difference to meet the other person on the other side. Because what I really don't want is this place where everybody's different and everybody stays defined by the difference. So nobody is like, oh, we're all different. Like, that's great. We can't chat anymore. So be different, first accept that difference as well, but also integrated in what your vision is for the workplace, what your mission is for the workplace. How can you meet other people as well in their difference, so that we put, again, the human, the connection at the center of what we do, and we get buy-ins rather than, again, forcing and pushing and pulling. That is rarely a win-win situation as well.
I love that. And I just want to add, I've recently seen Simon Sinek saying, that philosophy of work hard, play hard. And he's like, that's the worst philosophy in the world, right?
Yes.
And his sentiments is, you need to work smart and play always.
Yes.
I think that really helps or supports what you're saying around, this is quite individualistic, because, from an individual's perspective, when you define how you want to set up your career, and what does my career look like, and I think very, very often, when people find themselves in a work environment or working for big organizations, they define that as, well, that's my job. I just go to my job. Mm-hmm. And I think that narrative is also, especially when it comes from a leading self position, the narrative of, well, this is my job or this is my career, that lends itself to really asking different types of questions and really redefining what your leadership looks like, what your career looks like, and what impact you can have within an organization.
Exactly. And we're going back to, are you driving the bus, or is the bus driving you? And when you define yourself by, this is just a job, it means that you're not really living any life. You just go there, you do your thing, you go home, and we're done. And then what? You're spending a good 5 days a week at the job, we're going probably to work much longer than our parents or our grandparents. So it's really about time to define the job as being part of the life, and as being life itself, and as being a place where you can grow, you can be a better person, you can grow yourself on a personal level. But for that, you need also to detach from the doing and the strict doing, like the hard skills, and go into more these soft skills, where this is where your authenticity will come forward. This is where your humanity will be. And this is also how you make a difference and how you make an impact. Absolutely.
Fantastic. I love that. So how to be successful, feeling achieved, and finding your freedom in the corporate world. We have Mayda Poc with us. Mayda, if we want to get hold of you, where do we go? What's the quickest, easiest way?
Quickest is probably on LinkedIn, Mayda Poc. I'm also on Instagram, Mayda Poc. I have a website, Mayda Poc Coaching, and you can email me, mayda@maydapoccoaching.com.
Fantastic. Mayda Poc, it was an absolute pleasure, guys. We will have all the links in the description boxes below. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I will definitely chat to you soon.
Thank you, and the pleasure was really mine. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Cheers for now. Bye.